Okay, boys and girls, so we took a short break and now we're back. And the first thing I want us to look at before we start on our first story is this is our main character's name. So we already talked about this. This word is Grace. So we've got our sneaky E and our soft C because of that E. So her name is Grace. This is her last name. So when we get two-syllable words that don't have the dot in the middle, if we're stuck on them, I'm going to start showing you how to break that word apart. I also have a cool video I'll try to remember to attach. So the first thing we want to do is we want to mark our vowels. So I've got two E's. And we're lucky. This is the easiest pattern to mark. We've got two consonants in the middle. Normally, when there's two consonants in the middle, our syllables break right in between. So we've got sp. N, spen. Ooh, we've got an E. So I know that should make that C soft. So spen, Spencer. Her name is Grace Spencer. So as we read, boys and girls, I sat outside today just for you so that I can erase on my tabletop. So let's look at what our story is going to be today. We're going to start with chapter 1. Mr., there's our word, Spencer, and the rabbits. And it's on page 2. So go ahead and turn to page 2. So as we read today, boys and girls, I know it's going to be really tempting to try and follow along with me, but I would rather, let's see if I can get this, that's not going to work. Let's go back to where we were. I would rather you follow along in your book and just listen. I'm going to read the first time through on this story together. Moms, dads, uncles, grandma, grandpa, whoever is helping with schoolwork, whenever we do our stories, we like to read them 3 times. And there's a reason. The first time through, most of my students are going to spend most of their brain capacity breaking apart words and figuring out what they are. And that first time through, they're not going to get a whole lot from what's happening in the story. The second time through, they're still breaking apart those words, but they're starting to get some of the storyline. And the third time through, for most students, the words are starting to get easier and they can pay more attention to what's actually happening. Now, if your student is struggling on words, it may take more than 3 times through. I know that's frustrating. All 3 times do not have to be in a row. If they read it twice and they're just spent, let them go outside and play for 30 minutes. Let them go do a craft. Let them eat a snack. It's fine with me. That's part of why I give y'all 10 days with our content, so that it's completely okay if it takes you more than 1 day to get through, like this is day 4. If it takes you more than 1 day, that's okay. All right, so we talked about our title already. Our title is Mr. Spencer and the Rabbits. So looking at my illustration, I noticed that guess what I don't see in this picture? I don't see any rabbits. So I don't know where the rabbits are going to come into play. Let's see if we can figure that out. All right. Grace Spencer's dad has a farm. Ooh, you know what I noticed? There's an apostrophe S here. Grace Spencer's dad. I think this is possessive. That means it shows that Grace Spencer owns something. What belongs to Grace Spencer here? I hope you said it's her dad. Grace Spencer's dad has a farm. Her dad is a, well, I see the word farm, and then I see an R-controlled vowel, so it's a great. Her dad is a farmer out in the Midwest, where the land is flat and the soil is rich. So, boys and girls, Midwest is an area of the United States. Just like we talked about Kate going out west with her grandmother, Grace is going to live in the Midwest. Once we finish, or even now if you want to pause it, if you'll scroll down to the bottom of today's lesson, I've put a map of the Midwest so you can see which states that includes. In the spring, Mr. Spencer plants corn next to the farmhouse. So farmhouse is a compound word. It's a house on a farm. All summer long, he takes care of the corn. So let's look at our picture. Based on what we've read so far, what do you think all this is behind Grace and Mr. Spencer? I hope you said corn. By the end of the summer, the corn is ripe. Ripe means that it's ready to pick. Then Mr. Spencer harvests it and sells it. That's how he makes a living. So if he harvests it, that means that he goes out and picks it. And by making a living, that means that's how he makes money. Miss Oots is a teacher for a living. Some of your moms and dads might work at restaurants. They might be nurses. They might be doctors. Whatever they do to make money is what they do to make a living. Mr. Spencer has a garden too. Let's look at the word garden and how I know that word is garden. We have Garden. Garden, so you can see it good, follows the same pattern that Spencer did. I've got a vowel and a vowel with two consonants in the middle. Usually we'll divide down the middle. G-R, gar, d-n, den, garden. These are both closed. This is an R-controlled syllable. Sorry, I almost told you wrong. R-controlled syllable and a closed syllable. So, Mr. Spencer has a garden, too. In his garden, he plants... Ooh, that's a compound word. I noticed that this word has the word egg in it. In his garden, he plants eggplants. Eggplants. Eats sprouts, and peppers. Mr. Spencer has a garden too. In his garden, he plants eggplants, beets, sprouts, and peppers. So now that we've read the page, I can bet that this is probably part of Mr. Spencer's garden. With what I know about plants, I think those are probably eggplants. That would be my guess. Mr. Spencer has had some, I don't know that word. Let's see what I can do to solve it. This is why I had you grab a piece of paper and a pencil if you wanted it. So let's get where you can see it. There's my word that I'm stuck on. So I have a vowel and a vowel. Ooh, well look, I've got two consonants in between. And we've learned from the other words we've broken apart that most of the time you can divide between the two consonants. So we have prob, lems, problems. Mr. Spencer has had some problems with rabbits. So before we read any farther, I want you to think for a second. What do you think the problem is going to be? We've read all about Mr. Spencer's garden, and we can use our detective skills to look at our illustration. I bet you've got an idea. They crawl under the fence. I know this is a soft C because it's followed by an E. They crawl under the fence, hop into his garden, and munch on his plants. What's another word for munch? Yeah, munch just means to eat. They munch on his plants. When Mr. Spencer sees the rabbits in his garden, he gets mad as a hornet. So I want you to think, if I'm out in my garden and I hit a hornet's nest or a wasp's nest with my shovel, what are those wasps or hornets going to do? They're going to come flying out and they are going to be angry. When you see the term mad as a hornet, that means you're really, really mad. He shakes his fist and shouts at the rabbits. Look at my illustration. That's what he's doing there. I want you to make a face like you think Mr. Spencer would make while he's chasing his rabbits. You should send me a picture of that face. I would love to see that face. Grace and her sister, Jill. Ooh, that's a new character. Grace and her sister, Jill. So now we've met her sister. Like the rabbits. Grace says they are cute. She tells her dad to be nice and let the rabbits be. But Mr. Spencer can't stand those rabbits. And the Spencers need the plants in the garden to feed them in the winter. Last summer, Mr. Spencer got a dog to force the rabbits out of his garden. The dog's name is Pepper. Ooh, that's another character. So now we've got a dog named Pepper. He is a black dog. He sleeps out in the barn. When Pepper came to the farm, he gave the rabbits quite a scare. They were in the garden, munching on sprouts. Then Pepper came charging out into the yard, barking. The rabbits took off. They raced back into their hole as fast as they could. How do you think the rabbits feel? How do you think Pepper feels? Pepper ran to the rabbit hole and went in as far as he could. He started digging. He started digging with his paws, but it was no use. It was a deep hole, and he could not get down to where the rabbits were. So I want you to think about Pepper and the rabbits. Who's the predator and who's the prey? Think about it. That's a good connection to our habitats unit. Why do you think rabbits make their habitats down in that hole? How does that benefit them? Mr. Spencer was sitting in the living room at the time. He could tell what Pepper was up to. He smiled. "Good dog," he said. "Good dog. I bet those rabbits will munch on sprouts somewhere else next time." Let's see. I think it is. I know that's the end of our story because you can see the title to the next chapter coming up. So I'm going to turn back to the first page. Now, how many times have we read this story? We've only read this story one time. So, you are not done reading. Right now, I want you to promise me that you're not done reading this story, because how many times do we need to read it? Right, we need to read it 3 times. But what I do want you to do is I want you to get out your skills workbook. Pause the video if you need more time. And I'll leave that open over there. We're going to get out our skills workbook, and we're going to turn to 6.3. You can tear it out if you would like. Before we got out on this break, we were practicing a new skill. Why would we want to read the questions before we finish reading the story? I hope you said that reading the questions before we're finished with the story helps us know what we're looking for, and it helps that alarm go off in our brain that says, ding, 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 I'm going to need this information. So let's look at our questions together. It says, what is the land like out in the Midwest? Now, this they try and trick you, because when we answer this question, our brain is going to want to talk about the West. But Grace doesn't live in the West. She lives in the Midwest. Kate was in the West. These are different places. Make sure you go back in the story. You have to put your page number anyway. So make sure you touch that answer when you find it in the story. What things are in Mr. Spencer's garden? Now, I know because this says things that I should have more than one. Let's think about how could we restate this question. What things are in Mr. Spencer's garden? We could say, in Mr. Spencer's garden, there is, in Mr. Spencer's garden, if I had my pencil right now, I would take it and I would circle in Mr. Spencer's garden because I can use those exact words to restate my question. Don't forget to put your page number. What is the problem with Mr. Spencer's garden? Once again, don't forget your page number. And the last question. Pepper helps Mr. Spencer when he... What did Pepper help him with? Don't forget your page number. Alright. Oh, clearance. One thing I wanted to tell you. Page 5.2, we did not use. This is from the writing page. You may tear out just this page, 5.2. And if you want to use it, you can, or you can throw it away. I meant to tell you that when we finished our writing earlier this week, but I forgot. Go figure. Anyways, so boys and girls, I want you to put 6.3 away. How many more times do you need to read our story? 2. Read our story 2 more times. You may need to read it more than that. That's fine. You're going to read your story 2 more times and then use your story to answer your questions. You can attach a picture of your questions so that I can look over them. Mostly, parents, I want to check and make sure that they're still answering our short answers correctly because these are going to come in play a lot, and I want to make sure that they're not losing everything we've worked on this year. So I hope you're excited about our new reader. I hope you enjoyed doing this online. I've enjoyed the pretty weather while I sat outside with you. Let me know if you have any questions. I love you, boys and girls.